Hey guys, Anfield here, and welcome back to another Ranger video. We're continuing the Compendium series, which is composed of smaller videos compared to the prior Bible videos. My hope is that it helps me keep the content up to date more easily. As you can see with the title of this video, we're now moving on to Endgame PvE, a highly requested video that I'm sure many of you will be glad to finally see finished. I'd like to personally shout out Ordain for dropping by my stream and donating some Twitch bits as an appreciation for these videos. This takes up a significant portion of my free time, and the ad revenue doesn't exactly amount too much, so that means a lot. We have a lot to cover though, so let's get stuck in. I thought about how I wanted to address add-ons, because the issue add-ons have is that they vary depending on the spot. I've decided to build basic add-ons and then mention later how they might change when I talk about different grinding areas. With that said, on screen now you can see a basic add-on set for general coverage. You can make tweaks to this if you wish, but generally the idea is that you always use Wailing Wind to start a new pack. Waltz of Wind is always being spammed for general movement, damage, and repositioning. So essentially you gain monster damage and crit rate from Wailing, which is also granting its own crit rate independent of its add-on. Then Waltz is always applying the minus 15 DP debuff and also giving you movement speed, which is helpful for moving to new mobs or grouping new mobs and buffing your dash speed. Nature's Tremble and Regeneration are the two Awakening Tier 3 add-ons. So they have the most important, in my view, add-ons, which is crit rate, minus DP, attack speed, and critical damage. You could choose to apply 30 monster damage here. Again, this will depend on the grind spot, since if you're AP capped to the spot, the cap is severe. Let's say Elvia's cap. 30 monster damage is actually only then giving you like 1.5 AP extra. You could choose to throw in Charging Wind, as it is a tier 3 add-on as well. However, I wanted to keep the add-ons Awakening only just for the smoothness, but you might have a chance to use Charging Wind after a Squall Shot. Again, some spots call for different add-ons. A high evasion spot might mean you need accuracy and minus evasion add-ons. A dangerous spot might mean throwing HP on hit as well as potentially plus DP add-ons. Human type monsters may require you to grab the plus PvP damage add-ons. Next, let's talk about crystals and lightstones. Beginning with crystals, I will show you what I use for typical grinding. Again, as before with the add-ons, these will change depending on the grind spot. As with some spots, you may need resistance crystals, such as like Ash Forest, where you need 100% KD resist. You may also need more or less accuracy depending on your accuracy versus the grind spot you're at. For example, I still have 2 Djinn Vipers in here. However, you may need the Elcar crystal accuracy as well, or if you also don't swap your crystals for PvP, you may want those Elcar crystals for the ignore resistance and the accuracy. With this though, you'll be able to max your crit even if you run a frenzy draft and have 4% extra attack speed and plenty of bonus AP. Keep in mind, if you're fighting human type monsters, you can try and get more red battlefield crystals in here for the human damage, since species damage is not affected by AP caps. Now for your artifacts and lightstones. Beginning with your artifacts. Usually you pick monster AP or maybe DP if you are under the recommended DP for the grind spot, though sometimes ranged accuracy may be helpful to plug accuracy gaps at some grind spots. The only other set may be worth it is the Black Spirit Rage storage, so you can more timely use your ultimate for the buff to maximize when you have that buff versus your E buff. But this is very niche and very spot dependent, so I wouldn't really bother, and I would just use the early recommended ones. As for myself, I'm going to be totally honest with you guys, they're completely random. I just happen to be what I have available. It's more about the Lightstones. Now for the Lightstones. This is where it can be a little trickier. I have 5 PvE Lightstone combinations, all 3 species damage ones, so that's Camasylvian, Demi-Human, and Human. These are great to provide AP past the AP cap on spots. As I mentioned before, species-specific damage is not AP capped. These are also far cheaper than the alternatives I will mention next. If, for example, you only grind Gyphon Underground, then Camasylvian damage set is by far the most cost effective and potentially the most overall effective. The next 2 sets are extremely pricey. They are Deathblow and Vicious Shadows. Deathblow, which requires 2 expensive Blade Lightstones, grants a bonus of 14% critical hit rate and some monster damage. The critical hit rate is a big extra bonus to skills like Waltz of Wind, which does not reach 100% critical hit rate. Since critical hits are double your damage without any further modifications, this is a big damage boost. Vicious Shadows requires a Strike Lightstone, notorious for its price and sometimes difficulty to obtain, but applies monster damage as well and has 6% back attack damage and 3% critical hit damage in total. Again, this is applying bonus damage to your critical hits and your back attack specific damage, which is the primary modifier at most grind spots. So you might use one of these at, for example, Sakraya, where the monsters do not have a specific species. Personally, I think between the two, they're very close. Close enough that you may not notice a difference. Since the boss and the Black Star weapons gain 10% critical damage, I've been trying Deathblow more, but I'm not sure that it's better or not. Some people may use higher critical hit damage bonuses that the more PvP leaning Lightstone sets provide as well, so you can look into that if you prefer, but I'm not sure they would outperform Vicious Shadows enough. I won't linger long on buffs, and I'll be real. Thanks to the AP caps, it can get a little messy, but generally if a spot is 70% AP cap like Sakurai, I like to use Simple Kron and Frenzy Draft. If it is 30% cap like Jade or lower like Elvia, I tend to use the Exquisite Kron Mill and Giants. This may change if I need the HP recovery from Frenzy or PvE damage reduction from Simple Kron. Running a Villa buff is pretty standard, and you should also grab the Church buffs when you can. If you want, you can get the Heidel crit buff before you grind, and you can go for that if you want. It only lasts 30 minutes though, so it won't last long. At some spots, a full elixir rotation may be recommended, such as Olin's or Crypt, and for people at Hex as well. Not to mention, much of this is not unique to Ranger, so I don't think we need to linger for too long. I would also mention if you do need more accuracy, you can always take a house buff from a house that's located near the grind spots, such as Ash Forest. You can grab something from Calpheon. Okay, so we've sorted prep. Let's look at what many of you asked me about: combos. I appreciate that for a lot of you coming from other classes, Ranger can be jarring, especially since you're used to classes with looping or infinite combos, so to speak. That is to say, you can start with ability A, finish with ability F, and when you do that, you're ready to start with ability A again. However, Ranger does not function this way. Her PvE also consists of far more abilities than most classes that need to be cancelled extremely quickly, and how you approach this will need to be adapted from grind spot to grind spot, as some mobs will have a wide range of kill speeds. With that said, there are some rules that are pretty set in stone. Each new pack of monsters, you will always use Wailing Wind. That is your Q ability. It has no cooldown, so you can be used whenever. This is because it applies a crit buff to yourself, that when combined with the add-on that we talked about earlier, immediately can grant you a total of 40% crit rate, or if you don't have the add-on, it's 20%. This skill also debuffs opponents by applying -20 ranged DP debuff. It is important to note that ranged DP and regular DP are different debuffs, therefore you can stack them nicely. This comes in useful for my second ability, provided again it is off cooldown, which is Nature's Tremble, activated via Shift LMB. This is a tier 3 add-on, as I mentioned earlier. It applies a -20 DP debuff, and if you use my suggested -20 DP add-on, that will make it a total of 40 DP debuff. However, since you also started with Wailing Wind, this is now applying a 60 DP debuff in total. So that's 20 range DP debuff from Wailing Wind, and then 40 from Nature's Tremble. These two abilities, along with constantly using Waltz of Wind to reposition and to get behind monsters, are the only really set in stone openings, and even Nature's Tremble may not be ready for a new pack of monsters depending on your kill speed, so you could really just say Wailing Wind of Waltz of Wind are set in stone. So let's actually take a look at a DPS combo you could open with against tankier mobs. Again, like I said, Ranger is very flexible. You can do a lot of things, cancel a lot of things into each other. This is just an example. So we're going to start with Q for Wailing Wind, then W plus F for Waltz of Wind while turning the camera to face the back of the mobs, then LMB to activate Breezy Blade, RMB to activate Rushing Wind, F and then S for Vine Knot into Waltz of Wind as a combination, Shift LMB to activate a fast cancel Nature's Tremble, and then F to activate a Wind Blade while still holding Shift. Next, Wailing Wind again by pressing Q to get its Flow Tempest using spacebar. Now you can use regeneration from your designated hotbar key. Next, you'll press Shift RMB for Elven Rage, and then LMB for its Flow Dissolution. Then you can press Shift Q for Guardian Wind, and finally you can close it out with the bow by holding Shift still and pressing X. Or you can also hotbar it. Squall Shot will then allow you to fast animation cancel the Magnus ability Binding Arrow, which is just an S plus F input. You can dash forwards, or you can use A and D plus C to swap back into Awakening. There are many various forms and combinations you can run these abilities, but this is a general combo you can practice and then simply start working on your own. As I said previously, due to varying tankiness levels, you may need smaller combos or even longer. As I said though, always try to begin with Wailing Wind and activate one of the tier 3 add-ons like Nature's Tremble if possible. I recommend on tankier mobs doing a quick few auto attacks for the ranged AP buff. And also, if you need accuracy, you can throw in Cold Blade for the ranged accuracy and Call of the Earth for general accuracy. You can also blast and gust the mobs to give them minus evasion. So next up, we're going to have a look at a few different grind spots. This part I'm not going to script. It's going to be a little bit more off the cuff because I think it would be too difficult to script it anyway, but I'll just be mentioning what you're seeing on the screen, giving you a few different bits of information like what add-ons you can try and change for these grind spots, and you'll also get to see also how combos change and how things are flowing differently depending on the speed of the kill, the grind spots, because we'll start some mid-game spots, finish with some tankier mobs, and you can kind of see the difference. So I was actually really surprised. I haven't been to Kratsuga in a super long time, and I couldn't believe how weak they were. I actually tried dropping my AP a ton of times, but you know, although the AP cap is like 470-ish or something like that, I don't know off the top of my head. It's very low. It's very easy to hit that AP cap, and ultimately they just melt regardless. Sometimes the mob set will be AP capped in such a way that you still have to pump a few skills into them. This is definitely not one of those occasions. They melt so fast. You can see just with a few, like 1 or 2 abilities, they're dead. So I tried dropping my AP, and honestly, multiple times I did this. It didn't make a difference. I put Vicious Shadows on just to see, but you could always use like a cheap back attack one. I think I mentioned one in my early game PvE guide, a cheap back attack Lightstone set that you can run. But as you can see, the mobs just melt. I don't know if history is like this. I haven't been to history in a really long time either. But if they are, wow. But this is actually a spot I'd really recommend you go to if you are, like, say, seasonal and you're getting into mid to late game PvE for the first time. You're moving on from like your one-hittable spots. But I don't recommend this spot, which is Star's End, because it's ultimately you're super reliant on getting the drops. And if you don't, it's very terrible money, whereas Kratsuga is very good money without relying on a Giga Rare drop. Here, you're looking for the Distortionary. We do clear it very fast. You could do towers, but you need a lot more DP for that. And if you do towers, I don't know. I think it's kind of lame with our AoE. You could run full knockback resistance and just spam Will of the Wind all the time with a Spirit Perfume on for the mana if you wanted to. That would definitely use Deathblow. But this is just simply using the Demi-Human set. It is worth using the ultimate 100%. In endgame PvE as Ranger, you get the buff and the damage is actually quite good. Whereas in early game, I showed you before, you can just dash to cancel it immediately, because when the mobs are going to die, you don't really want to be locked in that animation. But when it does help you with damage, that's great. So you can see I dropped a lot of AP here, and I think I'd do it one more time. They still just melt really fast, especially when you get modified either back attack or down attack damage, which you get both here. Your add-ons here, you might want to throw in down attack modified damage, just because you are going to get that with the crystals. I'm pretty sure that mob bugged. So you are going to get that. You can actually see a miss or two there. That's because I dropped so much gear, including a turbo belt. But yeah, there you go, 180 AP plus the Demi-Human set. So that Demi-Human set is super cheap, so anybody could really get that. Again, I wouldn't really recommend Star's End unless you were super bored and just wanted something different to do. Distortion Earrings is the only way you make money here, and if you don't get them, it sucks. Vogons, of course, if you're going to shard hunt, this is Demi-Human as well. You can see that by the top screen when you look at the monster health bar or the name of the monster. It has like the little icon. That's how you can tell what monster type it is. So these are Demi-Human. So I guess the issue here is that the mobs are very spread out, which is not good for Ranger's limited AoE sizes. So it's not one of her better spots, to be honest with you. It is really important that you have movement speed add-ons here because you are dashing between packs a lot. So again, that's why that's important. That adds up a lot over the hour to speed you up. If you were to consider sort of how much you dash between packs, if you dash 7% faster than you might otherwise do, obviously that makes a big difference. So that's why movement speed add-on I think is very worth it. Ultimately, we do have fine damage here, but they just are not that great to grind. But if you do need the shards, you might come here anyway. So as you can see, pretty cleanly killed. So yeah, moving on to Sakraya. Sakraya is I think Deathblow is quite good here, but also Vicious Shadows is good as well. So it just depends. I accidentally over aggroed because I forgot to kill the mobs at the top, so you can see there. But these mobs die very quickly as well, so long as you get behind them. But they're kind of difficult because they do move. Although they group up fast, which is nice, they turn around really fast. But even without back attacks, you see how much damage the ult does there. It's more than fine. But yeah, so unfortunately, they do turn around very quickly. So another thing, you want to be avoiding the slow from the deep sea tower there. So in order to do that, you can iframe it, but our iframe, PvE iframe, changed, and it's now the dash instead of evasive explosive shot. That means in order to PvE iframe, you can just spam the dash. So even though it doesn't show iframe, because it's not PvP iframe, it is actually iframe still in PvE. So that's something worth noting. As also some of the bow evasion mobility skills, like riding the wind, for example, are also PvE iframe now, but evasive explosive shot is not. So yeah. As you can see here, there's lots of ways to group mobs, by the way. I hadn't really mentioned it. Like mobs like that where they're like kind of close and you just want to pull them fast. You can use the bow with blasting gust and shotgun just to pull a bunch of them at once. It's up to you. I've seen people use descending current off the hotbar, which is like you can use the pre-awakening descending current just to pull mobs. I wouldn't do that if the mobs get stunned by KDs. Some mobs behave that way. If they get hit by a KD but can't be KD'd, they get stunned instead. So you just want to be careful about that. But obviously Blasting Gust does that as well, so yeah. Another way you can do it is by using Guardian Wind as well, Shift Q, although it has a longer cooldown. So as you can see here, Orcs I don't like. Damage-wise, we're mostly okay here. It's just really that they're really spread out and they're super annoying. As you can see, there's always mobs coming from all kinds of different directions. I hate Orcs. I hate LV in general. It's on the video so you can see it. I also have a full hour of ranger grinding orcs. None of this is very like efficient grinding, although I'm going to get a weapon here, and no matter what you do with the weapon, you're going to own these mobs. You can even use the new Elvia skill now, by the way. Used to take the pre-awakening weapon and it wouldn't let you do that, but you can do that now if you happen to be here. There it is. But yeah, no matter what you're going to do, you're going to one-shot these mobs. If you try to do a full hour of efficient ranger grinding, you're going to be exhausted. I mean, it's exhausting anyway, but yeah, that's going to really be bad. Gyfin is one of the ranger's better spots. The mobs stick in position for a long time, allowing you to get those permanent back attacks. It's really, really nice. See, this mob isn't going to get a chance to even turn around. Easy peasy. So yeah, our DPS here is very, very good. We do lots of damage, and the back attacks really help with that. And because there's a setup stage, that's really good for us too. You can auto attack forward and get the extra AP from that too. I use Camisylvian damage here, but if I wasn't to use that, I'd use Vicious Shadows because the back attacks are permanent. I don't think Deathblow would be as useful because you're not spamming Waltz as much. So as you can see here, I'm going to do a longer combo to try and DPS the Butcher. If you have E buff, which I'm not popping here on purpose, but for the demonstration, but if you have E buff, you probably kill that before he even moves. So yeah, we are, I would say probably this is among our most competitive spots next to Hex and actually Olins as well, I think. So Ash Forest, you're going to run sort of anti-evasion add-ons, so accuracy plus anti-evasion. You want to keep up Cold Blade. You can see a few misses up here. I also get CC'd, and I checked my CC resistance. I did have a CC Crystal build, but it's only 87%. That's usually because I actually run Exquisite most of the time. The only reason I don't have Exquisite on here is because I was grinding Star's End for the demonstration before, and I still had Simple on from that. So, yeah, that's why I don't have that. But usually I'd run Exquisite. That gives a bit of resistance plus accuracy. And then also I would run a Calc Elixir, which also gives 10% resistance. So you want to be 100% because even if you can survive the knockdowns, then that's not a problem. You don't want to be knocked down anyway because it slows your DPS. The annoying part about these mobs for Ranger is the block jumps, though, so... Moving on now, we have my friend Angel sent me some footage to help with the video. This is him grinding Elvia Hex. The reason I'm not doing it is because I hate it. I refuse. So he has a lot of experience here because most people with endgame gear do because they live here. You can see he's running a full tryhard elixir rotation with also perfect courage. He's making sure he hits the AP cap to grind here. I had to mute this part of the stream because he was watching, or the video, because he was watching my stream. Which is kind of funny. But yeah, so this is, as you can see, he just throws in a lot of abilities. You always see Waltz of Wind and Wailing Wind coming out all the time. Waltz to reposition and move, and also Wailing Wind to debuff and debuff, or buff yourself, sorry. Waltz of Wind is also very, very good. It's like filler damage because we have so many skills that you go through them so fast. They actually have long cooldowns on some of them, like Tremble and stuff like that, so you can't just like immediately blast it, which is why we don't have an infinite combo loop like a lot of classes have, is because of these cooldowns. Despite the fact that we go through so many skills and animation cancel through them so fast, we actually run out of skills. So you end up having to use skills like Waltz of Wind because it doesn't have a hard cooldown. It doesn't lose damage on cooldown either, so it's very important. He's also moving around between pack to pack, so again, you want a movement speed add-on here. These mobs are, again, they are not specific species damage, so Vicious Shadows or Death Blow, depending if you value Waltz enough. One of those two. So this is Angel again, and this is grinding Crypt. Now I would grind Crypt, but I don't really have a reason to, and I don't have a setup for it. He has 4 big accuracy accessories here: the Dawn Earring, the Turbo Belt, and the Double Ominous. They're very expensive. And then his Lightstone set is Maiming, I think, which is actually minus damage, or sorry, minus defense, but like way up in accuracy. So you can see he has 1060 accuracy listed. Then there's going to be buffs and debuffs that go on during the grind. And he also hasn't even popped his elixir rotation yet. So yeah, you can see actually on the top left where you see his buffs, one of those is an accuracy house buff again. And just like Ash Force, you're going to want to always use sort of evasion debuff add-ons as well as accuracy buffing add-ons for yourself. So you can see here, the full elixir rotation is up now, and he's blasting. You saw him use Call of the Earth earlier. That's our pre-awakening ability that plants a tree. It lasts 20 seconds and has a 1-minute cooldown, which is a nerf from how it used to work. Thanks, PA. But also Cold Blade, he's going to use a lot as well, because Cold Blade is ranged accuracy. Just like I mentioned before with the DP, ranged DP versus normal DP, ranged accuracy is stackable with normal accuracy, because they're different types, but they still do the same thing effectively. So yeah, if you didn't know and it wasn't clear to you, Ranger Awakening still uses range type damage. Yes, the skills are melee in terms of how much of a distance you are from the mobs, but it's still range type damage. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, this is Crypt, as you can see, and big shout out to Angel for helping me with this, because it would have been a pain for me to actually get this otherwise. I don't have such super expensive accuracy accessories. I could use a bronze dagger, but even that's annoying to have to set up just for this video. I have no reason to grind Crypts. Eventually, when I do grind Crypt, it'll be for the Merchant Ring, which is super fast. This is the easiest spot to get the Merchant Ring. And my boy Leduc is going to help me. You might know Leduc from his crazy enhancing videos. He's going to sort of debuff with his Shy. I'll pick everything other than Debo Belts. He's going to yoink the Debo Belts, so that'll sort of be how that works eventually. But as you can see, again, a lot of like mix and match. There isn't really a set combo infinite loop, so you're just going to have to get used to sort of mixing and matching the different skills. You'll sort of get a feel for how they flow into each other and not. They animation cancel a lot into different things, so there's speedier ways you can do things. But generally, I hope this gave you sort of a gist and an idea of how to do it. If you have any questions, again, just leave them in the comments. You can also come by my stream, of course, and I'll try to elaborate further. I have a series of Ranger Awakening grinding videos already on YouTube. It was before Kudum got its buff, so I guess it would be a little bit faster now. I didn't have a Nesser or a Green offhand. So yeah, those videos I guess would be fast, but they weren't about trash speeds. They were just about demonstrations anyway. So if you want to watch an hour of a lot of different grind spots, I have that already on YouTube as well. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you around.